Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this another exciting MBA Analytical Live event. I'm Karthikeya, Head of Marketing at e-GMAT, and your host for this session. Today, we'll talk about B school selection and how various aspects such as your GMAT score, B school rankings, and placements can affect them. The format of the session is very simple. For the first 40 minutes, we'll discuss the core topics with the guest, and then we'll open it up for audience questions. So if you have any questions, you can ask it through the live chat or comments. So joining us today is Farman. So Farman is an ex-GMATer who scored a 760 on the GMAT and is currently an MBA candidate at Dartmouth Tuck. So hey Farman, how are you?
Hey Karthikeya, good morning everyone. I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Thank you so much for joining us. And Farman, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. I can give a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Farman Singh Garcha. Uh, I'm a mechanical engineer, passed out of DTU from 2015 batch. Post that, I was working for Axtria, which is a life sciences management consulting firm for 5 years. There, I've worked in providing sales and marketing strategies through data analytics for US-based pharmaceutical companies. Uh, Post that, during that, I started preparing for GMAT. Gave my two attempts. Got 680 on my first attempt. Got 760 on my second attempt, and post that, I applied for four different business schools, which we'll talk about later. And after that, got into both Tuck and Ross with scholarships, and finally chose to go to Tuck, which has been a good first year for me now. And I'm looking forward to my summer internship as well, which starts in next couple of weeks.
Wow, that's great. So before we jump into the topic, I just wanted to discuss one thing. That is that you scored a 760 from a 680, and so I saw your interview, and Atul, if you can share that link. So you talked about that you were struggling with sentence correction. So how did you work on it, and basically how did you work on it that enabled you to go to a 760?
Okay. I actually realized, so after getting a 680, I realized what was the key things that I actually need to improve on. One of the things was I could have scored 700 in that attempt itself, but I don't know what happened to my quant, because all of the marks that I gave for quant before that, I got 51, but on that day I got 49, which was devastating. But I knew that I was good in quant, but in terms of the three different sections that we have in verbal, my weakest one and my most inconsistent one was sentence correction. So I needed that. I needed to focus on that while keeping everything in line as well, so as to make sure I'm refreshing every other aspect of my preparation as well. So my focused on SC, and how I improved it was through the meaning based approach that e-GMAT provides. It was, I would say, a little difficult initially, but I gave myself time to make sure that I'm actually following that approach irrespective of how much time it is taking for each question, just to make sure that I'm consistently getting the easy and the medium questions right, and some of the hard questions right. And once I start doing that, at the back of the mind, your mind starts to uh, uh, in your muscle memory, it starts to have the process, which gets it easier and faster to solve the approach as you go into the process. So I think that overall helped, and I think that was one of the reason. uh, Based on that, and I would say, like I mentioned in that interview as well, having a positive mindset with no pressure during the exam helped me to reach a 760 score, instead of, I would say, my target score, which was around 730 or 740.
Wow. So, the reason why I asked you that is because I think that GMAT score can seriously impact your B school selection, and that's something that we'll discuss later on. So let's begin with the core topic. And as the topic says, B school selection, that's something that I personally feel is one aspect that is ignored or is not given enough thought, and it's not even talked about a lot, in the GMAT space in more of the sessions that we see. So I want to ask you upfront that why is B school selection so important?
So I would say B school selection is really important just because you're going to B school, not just from a careers perspective, which everybody goes to, but there are a lot of other things or other aspects related to it as well. So for me, if I talk about myself, I looked at school. So I knew that I wanted to do consulting. I had a background in consulting. I really loved my job for the past 5 years. I knew that I wanted to continue that as well. So I was looking at schools which will fit that, which are good at consulting, which will give me opportunities to actually not just try through the curriculum, learn a little bit more about different types of consulting as well in different industries. But in addition to that, it'll give me the opportunities to have a post MBA career in consulting and have a kind of network that I can probably leverage to have a career growth post MBA as well. So I think that is one of the key aspects that you should probably look at when you're actually selecting these schools. In addition to that, overall, the alumni network, the culture of the school, the size of the school, as to what are the kind of the experience that you want. Do you want a city experience? So you can go for Columbia or Stern, where people might not be as close knit as we're talking about, like a very small school in a remote town like Ann Arbor of Ross and Hanover for Tuck. So these are the different criterias that you should probably look at whenever you're deciding these schools. And I think finding a perfect fit for a school is more important than what ranking that school has in the top 10 for different rankings that you see. I personally feel for the past 1 year, and when I was applying, initially I had that mindset of selecting the B scores based on ranking, but I think that's a very myopic view of looking at it. There are a lot of different other factors that you should probably consider when talking about the B scores that you should probably select for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you can answer the second question as well. That when is the best time to put in the effort, or when should you think about selecting these schools? Is it before the GMAT or after the GMAT?
I would actually prefer. So I did it after the GMAT, but I would have preferred to be doing it before GMAT because it requires a lot of effort. Because just trying to gauge that fit, just to trying to understand what this school is all about, you need to talk to a lot of people, and that requires time. And if you want to like apply to like 4 or 5 schools at the end of the day, you might need to do that conversations with like more than, I would say, 8 or 10 schools, which will require a lot of time. So I think along with the GMAT preparation, you have a target score in mind, and given that you got that, based on that, you can gauge a lot of different type of schools and start knowing a little bit more about the schools. And I think that'll help you not even the GMAT preparation, but post GMAT preparation when you're talking about filling out the applications, writing your essays, getting your recommendations. You'll be have a better understanding of what exactly is that school looking for, and it'll make that process a little bit more faster than if you do that after your GMAT.
Okay. And were these the steps that you followed as well?
Yeah, so I kind of did, but kind of didn't. But so I had a target score and some schools in mind, but the final list that I actually got into was not the same as what I was thinking of before giving the GMAT. So once I actually had the score, it helped me uh, to finalize my list in a much more better way, because I was gunning at like 730 and 740 and 760 gave me a little bit more edge. So I gunned for a little bit more higher schools as well compared to what was not in my list initially. So I would say it's a balancing act, but you should probably start earlier in the process, and you can change that a little bit later in the course once you have your GMAT score and the other things lined up for you to make sure that you've selected the right schools for you and given your profile as well.
So, based on your process, which B schools did you apply to?
So finally, I ended up applying to Chicago Booth, Kellogg, Michigan Ross, and Tuck.
So, Farman, there's this thing, that there are these quantitative aspects like B school rank placements. class size. And then there are your personal interactions, with the adcom. So firstly, did you interact with the alumni adcoms before selecting these B schools? Was this a part of your process?
Yes, it was. So, like I mentioned, fit is really important because you will be associated with the MBA just not for the 2 years that you're doing an MBA, but post MBA as well through the alumni network. So I really wanted to test that. So I had a lot of conversations, not just with the current class of all of these B schools, but with the alumni and adcoms as well, just to try to understand what are the kind of the candidate that they're looking for, so that I can use that during my application process, but just try to understand whether that particular uh, uh, B school, whatever it offers in terms of what I'm looking for, is a good fit for me or not. I think that was one of the reasons that I actually ended up applying to the 4 schools that I ended up applying to, and I think that was one of the reasons which we'll talk about later as to why I chose Tuck over Ross as well.
Yes. But before we go there, I just wanted to ask, how important do you think are B school rankings as compared to your personal interactions? Like you said, that finding the fit is very important.
Right.
So that process compared to the quantitative metrics that are out there, which seem to be very important for MBA aspirants currently. So do you want to
Right.
address?
Sure. So I would say quantitative aspects are important, but particularly if I talk about ranking, it might not be that important, is what I've realized right now. Overall, because ranking fluctuates a lot and it's a lot of subjective things. But I think overall, the fit and the kind of career aspirations that you have, if that's a good fit for you, and I think you should go for it. For example, if I was looking at like consulting focused schools, and that was one of the reasons that I actually chose this 4 set of schools. In addition to that, not just talking about the consulting opportunities that they provide during the 2 years or post MBA as well. In addition to that, the type of culture, the type of people, the type of alumni network, and in addition to that, other extracurricular activities, other I would say like Tuck provides, GIX, Tuck Go, all of these additional opportunities, leadership opportunities that the B School provides. I think these are more important than 1 or 2 points in rankings for sure. So I think people should probably focus more on what you want out of an MBA and what that MBA or B school can provide you, rather than what is the ranking of that particular school uh, in different rankings.
So, I'm just seeing the comment section, and there is a really good question, which is that if you do not have the rankings, how can you select a program among a pool of thousands of schools throughout the world? I mean, what would you do if, so it could be that those rankings are, guiding you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of giving you a initial shortlist as to, based on your profile and based on uh, I would say whatever your overall profile looks like and whatever that B school is looking for, it'll give you an idea. Yeah, these are the schools that you should probably look at. So, for example, if I'm talking about, you can start from a list of top 20 schools in the United States, and from there, I would say whenever one's ranked 12 and one's ranked 8, that does not mean that 8 is a good fit for you. 12 might be a better fit for you versus 8. It's just that ranking is kind of giving you direction that these are some of the good schools out there, but overall, out of those, ranking might not be, should not be one of your key criterias when you're actually deciding between schools, or whenever you're doing the B school selection, is what I'm trying to put the point across. So I'm not saying that rankings are not important. They should be used. They should be used to give you a initial list to start with, that you think you should be able to go forward with. And once you have that initial list, you should try to have conversations, try to understand the B school in a much more intimate way. And based on that, whatever you feel, based on your career aspirations and based on your cultural fit, I think that should be your main criteria to finally decide the B schools that you're actually applying for and going ahead in the process. I'm not sure whether I answered the question, but yeah, that's what my thoughts on that one.
No, I think I agree. I think rankings can help you filter, but they cannot help you exactly which B school you should go with, because at the end, uh, through that MBA, you should be able to achieve your post MBA career goals. So
Right.
that's why finding the fit is very important. So I agree with that, and I hope Prateek, your question has been answered. So moving on. So basically, how much from which B schools did you get admits?
So out of the four, I got admit from both Ross and Tuck.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so that brings me to the next interesting question. So you got a 760, you know, but in case you did not score a 760, let's say you got a 690 or a 680, but you had to apply to B schools. Would that have impacted your B school selection? Would you have still applied for Ross and Tuck? What would your approach would have been? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would still might have applied to Ross and Tuck, but my approach would have changed for sure because I come from a background, like I mentioned, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm an Indian and I'm a male. So that cohort is like very competitive when we talk about US business schools admissions. Uh, so in terms of that, I think my approach would have changed a little bit. Maybe I might not have applied to Booth or Chicago because they are more competitive than Tuck and Ross. I might have applied to Tuck and Ross. So basically, my Kellogg and Booth would have replaced Tuck and Ross as that'll be like more ambitious schools. Then I might have to go with a little uh, uh, lower schools, and then I'll have to change my list just to make sure that I have good odds of getting into that particular business schools
Uh,
based on an average profile that they're looking for, given my background.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And I can see a lot of questions that are coming on essays. And so there's this question from Karan, which asks that what about essays while submitting? You know, what's the best way to write those? So can you incorporate whether the process of selecting these schools can that help you write these essays?
For sure. So basically, when you start, let's say, when I said that I want to do an MBA, but when you're actually having those conversations with the people, with the alumni, you get the time to reflect that what is the actual reason that behind why do you want to do an MBA, and when you actually start exploring that, you get to know a lot of different things as to what you might need to do to achieve your post career goals as well. So I think having those conversations with different people will try you to understand yourself and your experiences a little bit better, and how does that fit into the MBA and the kind of candidate that a particular MBA or a B school is looking for. And I think once you have those conversations, it'll be much more easier to write those essays compared to just reading the prompt and start writing about things. So I think you need to think about yourself a little as to what you want from an MBA, have those conversations, and see what fits with particular B school. There might be some stories that fit with one B school much better than the other. So you need to tailor that into your essays to make sure that you are getting those points across which matter for that particular B school.
Uh, yeah, that makes sense. And so moving on. So, from your B school selection, it seems that you thoroughly followed the process, you know, and you selected your B schools and had both quantitative and qualitative aspects. But I'm sure you would have discussed your whole journey with a lot of people. Do you think, like, can you share what kind of mistakes do people make uh, while doing B school selection? Like, what are the top mistakes they make, and how can they avoid that?
So I think already talked about these points. I don't want to reiterate much, but to summarize, I would say, like we mentioned, don't use rankings per se to make the final decision as to which B schools do you want to apply for. Use as a guidance. Have those conversations. Try to understand the B schools a little bit more better way. And I think those conversations will help you refine your essays and getting those points across to the adcom and to the alumni in a much more better way uh, than if you don't do those conversations, because I'm not sure how many people actually try to make effort to know a little bit more about the schools, and I think that might be one of the mistakes that people do. And I think having those conversations, trying to understand what different B schools are looking for in a candidate and highlighting those in your stories kind of makes a lot of big difference when we're talking about getting the interviews and getting the final admit to the B school.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, you applied, you got admits from both Tuck and Ross. And not only you got admits, you got $40,000 scholarship from Ross and $20,000 scholarship from Tuck. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what were the factors? Like, why did you go for Tuck over Ross?
So I kind of had a spreadsheet because it was a very difficult situation I was in, because these schools are very much similar to the kind of schools which I wanted to do or go for. So overall, what it boiled down to was the conversations that I had. So I looked at the career opportunities. Both are really big, good consulting schools. I think more than third of the class for both of these schools goes into consulting, and a lot of big firms comes to both of these schools as well. So that was kind of a tie between them. In addition to that, I was looking at a very small class size as well. So Tuck kind of had an edge, but Ross was still again very close to it, which I think Ross is more like 400, 450 or something. Tuck is more like 300. So it was close. But overall, what it boiled down to was the conversations that I had with the current students, with the AdCom, and with the alumni. I think overall experience that I've had with those conversations and the responsiveness of the alumni was a really big positive for Tuck. And in addition to that, I was also looking forward to the additional opportunities that the overall area has to provide. Yes, people feel that Hanover is a very small town. There is nothing. I mean, yeah, you will get bored by the number of restaurants for sure, which I have right now. But there are a lot of other things that I'm a really outdoorsy person, so there are a lot of different things that you can do. I tried skiing for the first time this season. I really enjoyed it. Started learning golf recently. I think a couple of days back went kayaking as well. Went campfiring. There are a lot of different things that you can do in Upper Valley, and I think that was one of the key considerations that I actually took, because just outside the B schools, you have to make friends, and there should be a lot of bonding activities. And since it's a very small school, you get to do a lot more often just with your classmates, and at that kind of creates your intimate relationships. That kind of creates that bonds post MBA as well, and helps you to build those networks when you're out of school.
Okay. So from there, can I ask what kind of internship opportunity, like, you shared the B school life aspect of it. You also
Right,
got opportunity from Trinity. Can you talk
right.
about that?
Sure. So yeah, I'll be interning at Trinity, which is a small life sciences based management consulting firm based out of. They have a lot of different offices, but mainly based out of Boston. And I'm really excited. So it's going to start in the next 10 days. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. I'll get to work with the team and really get to work with the client in person, which is a great opportunity as well, because my past experience was that I was based in India. I was working with US pharmaceutical clients, and there was uh, a little bit gap as to understand. But here I'll be able to talk with patients, talk with physicians. So it'll be like a very intimate experience, and I'm really looking forward to it for sure.
Wow, yeah, that sounds good. And so a lot of people are asking about consultants. So did you use an MBA consultant?
So I didn't use MBA consultant per se as a person. So I used applicant lab, which gives you an idea about what are the different things that you need to do when we think about writing an essay. What are the key things that you need to do, and how do you structure it? What are the key things that you should highlight from your stories? What are the different stories that you have, and how do you highlight that in a particular essay? Uh, and it has a lot of different videos as well, which are really helpful. So I think if you call that as an MBA consultant, then I used an MBA consultant, but I didn't actually use a person as a consultant.
So I have two follow-up questions. So when should you hire a consultant? I mean, I know you went for an application, for an app for your applications, but when is the ideal time that you should go for it? And do you think that consultants or whatever you use can help you decide which B school you should go for?
I think in a way, so for example, if you don't have a lot of ideas, so first talking about your first question as to when in process do you need it, I would say start as early as possible. Because if you're using consultant, you'll try to get as much information and as much help from them as possible. Uh, Coming on to your second question, how they can help you, uh, f- uh, for candidates who are not really uh, uh, don't have a lot of information how does this the overall process works. I think consultant is a good way to actually understand what are the different key things that you need to do at which time, just to make sure that you are putting the best foot forward in your application process. So I think that is where consulting can really help, where they can help you structure your thoughts. At the end of it, you will be the one writing your essay, you'll be the one writing those stories because you know those stories better, but consultants will help you get the best out of those stories and highlight the key things, highlight what are the key objectives or goals that you need to achieve at what time, to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward when you're applying to the B schools.
Wow, yeah, that's true actually. Yes, and so let's move on to Tuck. So Tuck is looking for these attributes which are like smart, accomplished, aware, and nice. You know, so how did you portray that, and how did the exercise of finding the right B school help you do that?
Yeah, so I know that this is, people might think that this might be a marketing gimmick as well, but overall, I would say all of these traits are true to the people that I've seen at Tug Post, at my class and the class up above, and maybe the class incoming class of 23 as well. I would say how I portrayed. So basically, if I would say smart is basically based on your uh, quantitative skills. So that will be through to the GPA that you might have had during the undergrad. That will show how smart you are. Your GMAT score will kind of give an idea as to how smart you are as well. Accomplished is more related to professional experiences and how you have progressed through your professional experiences. So I think that is where you can highlight a lot of professional stories as to how you've grown from when you started for the first time in a company, and how you've ended up where you are and how that experience has been. So that will actually provide you how accomplished you are and how you think about things. Aware is basically being self-aware about why do you want to do an MBA, and what are the key things that you need, and make sure that B school can provide you, to make sure that they are the right perfect fit for you. So basically, this particular attribute is basically looking for that you're actually a great fit for the B school or not, as whether you are aware enough as to what the provides you, and how does that fit into what you need to go to your career aspiration that you want to go post MBA. So that is the key highlight that you should probably portray, which I did. And at the end of it, nice is basically uh, being nice to people, trying to help everybody in any way that he can, using your experiences. So, for example, I can give you a lot of anecdotes during my first year here. So, people might feel, so a lot of people go into consulting. I went into consulting as well. But given how people, irrespective of how competitive the process is, everybody was really collaborative as to help other people out, improve their casing skills, or help with their cover letters, or help with the interview prep. So it was overall a very collaborative nature during the whole interview process, irrespective of who got the job finally or who didn't. So I think that is one of the key attributes that I see in Takis, and I think that makes the overall experience a whole lot better as well.
Yeah. I think one thing that Tuck is known for is looking for soft skills in their candidates. And this question kind of summarizes that. And the way you answered it, it just proves, that how close knit the community is and why people prefer it over some of the top B schools.
Top results. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions that we have. So I think let's start with them. But before we start with the audience questions, guys, there is another session of MBA Analytical next week, which is of Ayush Rustagi. He's an MBA candidate at Columbia, and he got a scholarship of $80,000. So if you want to register for that session, you will find the links in the comments. And as for if you are struggling with GMAT, so we have a session on critical reasoning and algebra on Saturday and Sunday. So again, the links will be in the comment section. So let's start with the first question. I'll be filtering some of them. I don't think I can. Some of the questions have already been answered, so you can just view the this recording once the session is done. So let's start with Subbir's question. Yeah, it's basically about researching about B school.
Okay.
Can we see?
So I would say, yeah, I can see the question. So to answer your question, I think every B school has a website, and I think most of them has a list of candidates that are currently there. So I would say either you can start with admission adcom, which will be the easiest one to connect with. Once have that conversation with adcom, they'll connect with you. Just ask them to connect you to a student which has kind of your background, so as to make sure you get the most meaningful and important information that might be useful for you during your application process. So I would say start with adcom and ask them to connect to some student which is kind of in similar background to you, or background in terms of like country as well to you, and I think they'll connect you with them. Otherwise, what you can do is, I think a lot of top B schools at least do this, which is like they have a directory of current students with a little snapshot of their background as well as to where they're from, what they did pre-MBA, what are they planning on doing post-MBA as well. So that is kind of synopsis that you can read through for different people, and whatever you feel is the kind of the post-career MBA that you're actually looking forward to, or a pre-MBA career which was very much highly likely resonates with you, you just email them, and I think you'll get the response and finally connect with them to try to understand what their overall whole process looked like and what has their experiences been till now during the MBA, and how can that be helpful for you.
Yeah, I hope, Subbir, that answers your question. Moving on, I think it's a repeat, but there's just one aspect which can be answered. So we'll just answer that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, 1 second, my battery died out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah. So one, I think there's that echo issue that's happening again. Do you have any other? Actually, I think that's fine. So basically, when should you hire a consultant? Before the GMAT or after the GMAT? More of a yes/no question. Like when?
I would say before GMAT would be preferable, just because trying to understand the whole process, and doing a lot of stuff parallelly while you're preparing for GMAT will give you a more ample time to prepare for the applications and the requirements. Try to understand more about the B school as well. So I would suggest before GMAT is a good way. Uh, yeah, I mean, ideally that will be the case, but post GMAT you can do it, but that won't be ideal. I mean, I did that in a way. I was I did use applicant lab post GMAT, but I was still looking at the selection of these schools based on my target score before doing the GMAT as well. So I had kind of an idea as to which are the schools. which I wanted to apply for based on my interest and fit. And I kind of changed or modified and finalized the list once I had my actual score and use applicant lab refining the essays.
Okay, so basically as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is from Lavanya. How much time did you take to perfect your essay section?
I didn't had a lot of time, so I gave my GMAT end of June, I think 30th June is what I remember. Was when I gave my GMAT the second attempt. So I had like 2 to 2.5 months. I would say first month I was majorly doing B school selection process, which is like talking to alums, talking to current students, talking to adcoms, getting that final list. And I would say I started my first essay somewhere in August. And I applied to four of the schools like by mid September. So 6 to 7 weeks for all the essays. And I would say once you have, so how applicant lab actually helped me out was it asks you to get different stories together, so that you have a list of stories and a list of attributes related to those stories, and given these schools that you're applying for, the attributes that they are looking for in a particular essay, you'll be able to use those stories and try to create an essay out of it, which will be like very useful for you and efficient for you when you're creating those essays. So initially, I remember I started with my Kellogg essay, which took a lot of time because that was my first essay. But once you do that process for one B school, I think to replicate that process for different B schools is kind of easier. You can't copy paste the whole thing, but you at least have a structure as to how do you go about those answers. And once you know through those conversations what is the information you need to fit in, there's a structure to it. You just need to fit in, and you just need to uh, refine it a little bit. So I would say 6 to 8 weeks are more than enough to prepare for at least 3 or 4 schools, is what I thought during my experience with these schools.
Yeah. So I hope, Lavanya, that answers your question. And so a very common question that's asked basically, would an MBA act as a catalyst to change your career? It's the second part of the comment. So,
I mean, it depends. It might not. I haven't had that experience right now. I'm still in B school, but overall, I think it helps in certain positions for sure. Personally, I wanted to do an MBA to change my profile a little bit. I was really interested in healthcare, but I wanted to be like very close to the healthcare that I was working on. And since MBA is kind of an opportunity to give me that opportunity to work in the United States, to work within the US healthcare system. So I think that was one of the reason for me that I wanted to do an MBA. If you want to use that as catalyst, I think it does help as a catalyst for your career as well. But you need to make sure that the industry that you're looking for, does it actually require an MBA to progress in your career or not. So, for example, consulting, it requires in some ways to have an MBA. You can still survive without an MBA, but it'll take you more years. So, it will provide as a catalyst, but there are certain positions or certain industries where MBA might not be as big of a catalyst as it is in some industries.
well, yeah. So Prateek asks, can you tell me more about what type of extracurricular activities one should focus upon while selecting a particular B school?
Sure. Depending on what you, so I was looking at a lot of different things. I have zero finance background, so I wanted to understand finance a little bit more better. So I've been trying to take electives, trying to understand how the financial accounting work, how the capital markets work. So based on that, what you want to do through your experience, that is from a curriculum perspective. Apart from that, I have been participating in different case competitions. I've been participating uh, so there is like Tuck Community Consulting, which is like a consulting experience. and we are helping the community out of it. So I worked with one of the uh, owners of the Nugget Theater, uh, and we were trying to lease some of the property so that they can uh, give out the earn enough revenue to pay for all the different employees that they had during the pandemic. So it was a great experience. So these are the different opportunities that you can actually ask during your conversations as to, apart from the curriculum, apart from the career aspirations that you have, what are the other things that that a particular school can provide for you. And I think that if you ask those questions, if you try and challenge, uh, it'll give you a lot of content which will actually portray that you are actually a great fit for that particular school. So I think having those conversations, trying to understand, apart from the career aspect, what are the extra things that you can do, uh, is a great way to uh, showcase that perfect fit. So, for example, Tuck provides Tuck Go, which I think was not done last year because of pandemic, but I think it will resume next year. They do GIX expedition as well, which is like in a different country. So there are a lot of different things that you can do in different B schools. So
Yeah, that sounds great. So importance of GPA, how important is it?
I'm not sure. I mean, just a number range of GPA at Tuck is, I think, from 2.5 to 4. So I don't think that matters a lot. Uh, Given so, each aspect of your profile is weighed differently. If the other aspect of your profile are compensating for a low GPA, I think you'll be fine. So you just need to make sure that overall your profile is a little balanced. If you have low GPA, you have high GMAT. I think that kind of counteracts. Or even though you have average GMAT, but you have really great professional experiences, great progression in career growth, and great recommendations, I think that can overcome your GPA as well. So there is not one single aspect that they look at it in solo. I think it's the overall profile that actually matters at the end of the day.
And also, a GMAT score definitely compensates for a low GPA. So, if you have a low GPA, you should definitely target for a higher GMAT score because through these are the quantitative metrics that tell them that you are capable or you have the ability to handle their rigorous curriculum. So, if you have a good GMAT score, you can easily compensate for a low GPA. So there is a very detailed question. So Apoorv asks, since the average work experience is 5 to 6 years, do you have international students somewhere between 3 to 4 years of experience in your batch?
Yeah, there are a decent amount. I won't say that those are the majority. Majority are still 5 to 6 years. You'll see a lot of people with more than 10 years experience, or 8 to 10 years of experience, as well as people with 3 to 3.5 years of experience as well. So as long as you create a great story as to why you need an MBA at this point of time, I think uh, your current experience won't be a barrier towards that. I see a lot of people with 2.5 to 3 years experience right now at Tuck in our class as well. So I don't see that as a barrier. But yes, overall, I think a number of people applying with that years of experience is less. So overall, number of people who get into are less as well. Uh, I think that's kind of chicken and egg problem. But I don't think this is a barrier per se to your application.
Yeah. Uh, so the other question is from Tulsi. She's asking top B schools in your opinion for consulting, and what's your take on Tech MBA?
I don't know much about Tech MBA, so I can't comment on that. Uh, but that can help you though, based on data analytics if you have GMAT in range of 700. So overall, my experience has been uh, Kellogg, Booth, um, Tuck, Ross, Darden, uh, are really great consulting schools. I mean, all the other top, Stanford, Harvard, MIT will be a great. I mean, they'll be great at almost everything. But if you're just looking for specific consulting schools, I would say these five would be the one that I actually know uh, would be great consulting schools based on the percentage of people and the overall process that they have throughout the recruiting to make sure people are given enough resources to get into consulting.
Okay. 1 year versus 2 year MBA.
I was personally, so it depends on a lot of things. Did not want to consider 1 year MBA just because it depends. So if you are looking for same progression and you have the experience to back it up, 1 year MBA is a good way to go about it because financially it makes a lot of sense. But for me, I didn't want to take a chance because my whole experience has been in India and I wanted to pivot a little bit as well. So I was not quite sure whether one MBA will give me enough work experience to get the job at the end of it. And if I'm taking a big loan, I need to make sure that I have that possibility of getting a job and repay that loan. So I think getting those 2 years, spreading it out over the 2 years, and getting that internship to make sure that you have some experience, and based on that, you can get a full time job was one of the reasons that I actually went for 2 year MBA. But I think if 1 year MBA for programs like NCR and all works for a lot of people, so it can work for you. It's a very subjective question. For me, it was 2 years made more sense. But if you're just looking for a catalyst and remain in the same industry, and your work experience is related to uh, the place that you're actually wanted to work in post MBA as well, I think 1 year MBA makes sense as well.
So there's this good question from Raj, which is also relevant to you since you did not hire a consultant. Is it because consultants are asking for a lot of money? Is that why you did not go for them? And are they worth it, basically?
I don't know. So overall, applicant lab is 100% worth it, is what I can say at this point. I won't say that my reason for not hiring consultant was money per se, uh, because the way that I look at it, this is again a drop in ocean if you talk about the overall expense that you incur through these schools, because you're spending almost like 200, more than 200K over the course of your education for an MBA. So this if this gets into if this gets you into a B school that which is like very difficult for you to get into on your own, I think it's worth it. But overall, it depends on how comfortable you are uh, on portraying your stories. You can ask. I mean, you. I don't think everybody needs a consultant. In case you are comfortable writing your own essays, there'll still be people. You can ask people from the same MBA from the same B school to review your essays as well, which I did. You can ask your friends to review your essays for you as well. So as long as you are comfortable putting your stories and you think that is the best way to go about it, I think you can be okay without consultants as well. But if you need structure, if you are struggling, then I think hiring consultants makes it worth it as long as you get into the B schools which you want to get into.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think in your case, from this whole interview, what I'm getting is that you already had a clear idea of what you were targeting, and you knew for what aspects you targeted a particular B school, and that is most of the time what consultants help you get to.
Right.
Introspection and all that stuff. They guide you write better stuff, but if you do not know why this B school is a good fit for you and why are you good fit for that B school, then probably you should go for a consultant.
Yeah, I agree,
And
100%.
yeah, so on the GMAT, USB schools. So I think most of the questions are now basically, repeating themselves. I can just see one more question uh, which might add value. So basically, can the specialization like strategy, finance, marketing be decided during the course of MBA?
Yeah, so this is the one of the key elements of Tuck MBA as well. So you don't need to specialize in Tuck. So it's like a general MBA, but if you want to, you can. So for example, Tuck recently introduced STEM as well. So for STEM, you need to take like 15 credits of specific STEM related courses. So I think over the course of your MBA, you can decide to do uh, dual specialization or non-specialization. to a general MBA as well. So I don't know if all other B schools do this, but there are certain B schools that does this, which is like provide you a general MBA. But if you want to specialize, you can. If that helps you get the career, the career goals that you have.
Yeah, makes sense. Now let's just take one more question, and you do not need to answer the second one because consultant is not applicable. So, which B school interview was tough to crack, Tuck or Ross? Or actually, Kellogg also. You got a call from Kellogg as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that was my first interview. First interview was Kellogg's, so that was kind of okay-ish, I think. And from that interview is what I learned, what I need to do to improve for my next two interviews. So overall, I won't say any of those interviews were per se tough to crack. It's just that you need to make sure the stories that you have are you basically refine those stories and try to be as succinct and as straightforward as possible. So you need practice as a normal interview. So it's not a different interview as compared to a job interview. So job interview will be more focused on the job description and the company, and this is more related to uh, your MBA aspirations and why do you want to be in the school and your overall past experiences, professional experiences as well. So I would say it's not very different from another interview. It's just that you need to be prepared for the kind of questions that they ask you in this interview, and as long as you're comfortable, I think you should be fine.
Yeah. So I think let's end the session now. But before we end, guys, we have another session next week of Ayush Rustagi, who is an MBA candidate at Columbia with $80,000 in scholarship. You can find the registration link in the chat box. And we also have sessions on critical reasoning and algebra. And I hope you enjoyed the session. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more such content. And thank you so much, Farman. And thank you so much for doing this session.
No problem. And for anybody else, if you have any questions about GMAT, B School, talk in general, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know if I can I share my email?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You can send it to me. I'll send it to them.
Okay. I'll send it to you, my email ID, and you can forward it to people. So feel free to reach out. More than happy to help you out.
So thank you so much, guys. You can reach out to Farman through LinkedIn. And thank you so much. Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.